Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing on this Wednesday morning? So we're gonna get right into it and talk about Ocasio Cortez. Let's get it done. Okay, so Representative Alexandria Ocasio Cortez criticized Amazon's Jeff Bezos for being a billionaire company while his company pays warehouse workers starvation wages. Um, so she did an interview with ABC News this week, you know, claiming low worker pay contributions to Bezos' status as the world's richest person. Amazon retorted her thing, by saying, "Hey, we pay $15 minimum wage, offers full benefits to their employees, first days on the job, and noted a lobby to raise the federal minimum wage." In an interview, she says she doesn't care if Bezos is a billionaire, which I think is a lie. The way her and Bernie Sanders acts. They're like, if you're rich, you're bad. If you're rich or you own your own company and everything, you're bad. You don't care about anybody. You're evil and everything else. But you know, pay a worker's living wage. I thought everybody was in favor of having a $15 minimum wage. So Amazon's paying people $15 a minimum wage, and now she's saying it's starvation wages. And I don't get it. And living wage along with benefits like guaranteed health care. But if she's like, that's the case. Jeff Bezos is still a billionaire. That's one thing, But she's like, billionaire status is predicated on paying people starvation wages and stripping them of that ability to access health care. That's a problem. It's a free country. You negotiate when you take a job. You know exactly what you're going to be making. In some cases you can negotiate your wages a little bit, but when you take a job as a warehouse employee or whatever, you're saying, yeah, I agree to work for this wage with these benefits. If you don't like it, you go either you go to the next job that's going to pay you more, or hey, if you're smart enough or can come up with some type of great idea, you start your own business and you make that. But Amazon bounced back saying they're absurd. Amazon associates receive industry leading pay at $15 an hour, which is pretty good. I mean, depending on where you're at too. I mean, California $15 an hour is probably not going to cut it. Austin, Texas, yeah, you can do it, but you're probably going to live outside Austin. Just because cost of living in Austin can be pretty bad when it comes to housing. Everything else seems to be pretty reasonable, but housing is a bad thing. And they also go on to say Amazon prepays 95% of continuing education tuition costs through career choice programs for associates who want to pursue demands in careers. This is big. That is big. I mean, to have a company that's going to pay 95% of your continuing education, which in the long run is going to be, you can get a better job depending on what you're taking. If you're taking like a business management class, maybe going into PLC training, if you know what that is, basically programming automation and stuff like that. That's huge. That's huge for them to offer that. That's a big benefit, and she glazes right over top of that, and you're like, what are you talking about? That's just insane. That she's gonna overlook that. That's huge. She's complaining that he's worth 117 billion. You know, she's like, it's not nothing against Amazon, but the company pulling in billions of dollars for profit should pay a lower tax rate than firefighters, teachers. That's a little bit you know, naive of her. Because they're saying, well, they pay no federal taxes, but I'll show you what's going on from Forbes here in a minute. They've paid 2.6 billion in corporate tax since 2016. They pay every penny that they owe. You know, Congress designed laws to encourage companies to reinvest in the American economy. We have 200 billion in investments since 2011. Excuse me, and 300K jobs in the U.S. Assume VP Biden's complaint is with the tax code. So some of this is the tax code. Amazon, last year raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour for all employees. You know, and policy team will begin lobbying for an increase for federal minimum wage since from 7.25 an hour since 2009. That's where the problem lies. The government has not tried to raise this since 2009, but you're going to get on these corporations for not doing it. And they do have a point. A company is not going to raise their wages unless they can attract people. If they can attract people, they're not going to, at 7.25 an hour, there's no incentive to do that. But on the same token, you just can't raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour overnight. A steady increase, maybe once a year, once every 2 years or something like that, maybe go take it up to $1. If you do $1, maybe $1 a year, something like that for the next, 4 or 5 years to get them up there, maybe $1.50. That you want your $15 an hour to help not only the big corporations, but the small businesses, because you have to remember, when you start raising people's wages, their tax rate goes up. So the companies have to pay a tax with what they pay to their employees. That's part of the thing that they have to do. So, and their liability is not going to go down. I mean, if they're renting a building, you still got to pay your rent. You still got built-in prices which you have to do. So all in favor for a steady increase, but incrementally to help the smaller businesses, because what you've seen in Seattle and all that stuff was a lot of the businesses stopped and closed down because they couldn't afford it. But here we go. Here's the Forbes thing. Because they pulled it out because AOC. I know was not in her district, but she was kind of in the middle of this stuff. First, Amazon paid close to $1 billion in income tax in 2018. That amount jumped to 1.18 billion, accounting for local, state, and international taxes. Amazon pays plenty in terms of payroll taxes too, and also state and local taxes. Nor should you forget the taxes paid by Amazon employees on their wages, and that's what they seem to forget. They're like, oh, they pay no federal taxes, but they are paying taxes. Not only is that direct revenue of various government levels, but the incidences I cannot talk this morning, of those taxes fall somewhat on Amazon, which must pay higher wages to offset tax burden faced by the employers. So it's true, the last 2 years they didn't pay federal taxes, but you got to understand why. More thorough examination underlining the economics demonstrates that only looking at Amazon's profits versus corporate taxes is too simplistic of a model. And that's what AOC and Bernie Sanders and everybody does. They look, oh, you don't pay this, but they're not looking at what's going on. Incentives in layman's terms sounds like free money. Incentives to an economist operate as a lever to generate better results, which offset costs. Taxes are one such lever, but taxes are too often interpreted only by the first order effect, generating revenue, rather than the second order effect of stimulating the economy activity. Cites that less than 1% of its dedicated revenue generation. The majority effect is on tax deductions. There are only 30 pages of the tax code that actually raise revenues. Therefore, about 6,000 pages, I guess, is what they're telling you. I'm no expert on this. That tell you how to reduce taxes through tax deductions, credits, and other incentives. Tax deduction can be incorrectly characterized as crony capitalism, but tax deductions, tax credits, and others act as an important driver for organizations. Bleh, man, I cannot talk this morning. For it helps stimulate the economy, activity, job creations, and innovations. Amazon's tax breaks and underlying incentives. So they paid 22.6 billion in research and development. That's huge. That's a lot of money for them to go out and invest in research such as their drones and everything else. The next closest alpha was Alphabet at 16.6 billion. Most of their innovations have been birthed from this investment. Investments in property, plant, and tax equipment. Cities can benefit from Amazon's investments in real estate jobs creation. Steadily increased, netting approximately 60 billion in the end of last tax year. So that's buying equipment, property, and everything else. That's huge. 60 billion. And AOC and them are not. They don't look at that. Employee stock compensation. A move away from compensation to stock-based compensation for employees is a third driver of its tax breaks. Tax deductions increase as stock increases. While this can certainly create adverse incentives, it's important to assess the benefits of it creating the cost. While such a tax policy can introduce misaligned management incentives, it also generates incentives for managements to drive the best possible return for investors. Amazon pays no corporate tax precisely because it's reinvested its properties into its operations. Is what you want. You want them. You want these guys. You want a company to keep reinvesting. Buying new equipment and to get better. Under a scenario where Amazon had no corporate tax breaks, it would, basically this incentivize the company for reinvesting, thus creating greater opportunity for the businesses and cities which it operates. So by allowing, there's a gain for people because now the company with its liability being less can reinvest and get bigger and make new facilities. Raising a pitchfork to fight Amazon's corporate tax breaks is fine if the argument is rooted in strong economic reason. The risk is that too often data is pulled out of context and it's inaccurate. The data gain momentum is undeservedly accelerated. The building impetuous to tear down existing economic structures without strong grounding in why structures even exist could land us in worse positions. The question to address is not why Amazon pays no taxes, but under what tax structure could it be better off? And that's the problem because AOC and Bernie Sanders, they pop off with this stuff, but they don't give you the whole story. They're just giving you a piece to say, oh, this is what it is and bad. But I mean, if you look at what they do, they're reinvesting back in their employees, saying, hey, if you want to further your education, we'll pay for 95% of your ongoing education. And if you go into the right field, that's huge. I mean, they're complaining about, wanting free college for everybody. But just think if corporations could do this, give somebody a 95% on their college, if they choose it, if the company says, hey, we'll pay for, business management or, let's say HR training or, some type of technical training, PLCs, robotics, computer programming, all that kind of stuff. If they're willing to pay all that, I mean, you know, you got to take what they're paying with a grain of salt and mix in with everything else that they're doing. You know, so I don't know. You know, I'm just worried that we're going down a road where these uh, Democrats are trying to push socialism on people, aren't seeing the big picture as far as, you know, what happened with Venezuela and every place else that people try to implement socialism. You know, they forget that capitalism has pulled more people out of poverty than anything else. Do I think sometimes it goes a little too far? Yeah. But, you know, you got to take everything with a grain of salt and actually dig and figure things out for yourself, because nobody else is going to, and they're just going to give you half truths of what's going on. Alrighty, everybody. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up, comment, share. Alrighty, later on.